On. The meeting, our as Silicon Valley Leaders Symposium presentations are being recorded, so if you see that meeting is being recorded, please hit continue in order to stay in the room. All right, I think let's go ahead and get started with the introductions. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cheryl Ehrman, and I'm the Dean of the Davidson College of Engineering. And today it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ms. Sonar Thekdi, who's Vice President of Operations for VMware. Ms. Thekdi is an alumna of San Jose State, class of 1996, and she got her Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Engineering, and she belonged to our college's chapters of the Society of Computer Engineering and the Society of Women Engineers, SWE. In 1997, she began working for Hewlett-Packard as a system engineer, a job she held for 3 years. And then in 2001, she began an 18-year career at Cisco, moving up the company in rank and responsibility from her role as program manager of the desktop switching business unit to director of operations in several units, and then finally as vice president of engineering business operations for Cisco IoT. Since 2019, she's been working as VMware's VP of Operations and Products and Cloud Services. During the last few years, Ms. Thekdi has also made her mark in in engineering and executive leadership. She attended the Stanford Graduate School of Business's Leadership Program for Asian American executives and received executive training at Harvard Business School and INSEAD, or INSEAD, as part of the International Women's Forum Leadership Foundation Fellowship. Currently, she's an Advancing Women Executive Leader, part of a leadership program that partners with over 200 Fortune 1000 companies to increase the number of women in senior management and on corporate boards around the world. She's also been an advisory board member of SJSU's Silicon Valley Women in Engineering since 2018, which is how we met. With all this service to the engineering community to her credit, it's no wonder that she was recently named as Silicon Valley Business Journal's 2020 Women of Influence. So it's great to welcome you. Before you get started, though, I just want to let everybody know about some housekeeping. So there will definitely be time for questions. And so if you can put your questions into the chat, I'll be the moderator and I'll translate those out to our speaker so that she doesn't have to follow the chat directly herself. So, and you can put them into the chat at any point, and then we'll definitely have time for Q&A at the end, and maybe even during. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sonar. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute.
The most widely spoken words these days is "you're on mute," and I just heard that. So wow, thank you, Cheryl, for the introduction, and I just have to take a moment to contain myself because, as Cheryl mentioned, I graduated from San Jose State, and I wish that I was there in person with all of you and really be able to enjoy this the beautiful campus. Couple of thoughts as Cheryl was talking about me. One, she definitely makes me look really old because now you know that for many of you who are probably on this call, you were either not born or in diapers or somewhere. But anyway, yes, I'm such a proud alumna of San Jose State University. And it's a pleasure to be here. As Cheryl mentioned, being a part of SWE and Society of Computer Engineering were such influences in my time at San Jose State. They really helped me learn and develop my own networking skills and my leadership skills. So I want to encourage all of you, if you're not, to really take advantage of all the different chapters that you have on campus and really participate. I've titled my talk today that thank God it's Thursday. There is so much. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic and a lot of things feel really overwhelming and challenging, but I do, and I'll get to the point of why I believe that waking up every morning and really being grateful for where we are is just such an important perspective to have. So let me start out by talking a little bit about myself and my personal journey. And I don't know where my screen is. So I was born in India as the youngest of six girls. I have five older sisters, and I was born against all odds because my sisters are all much older than me, and there's a 10-year gap between the one who's older than me, so I almost felt like an accident child. My dad was an engineer, and my mom, who you see in this picture, has an education up to the fifth grade. When I was 3 years old, my dad passed away unexpectedly, and my mom went from being a housewife to being the head of her household overnight. And if you know anything about just women, and especially women who have limited education, and especially in a country like India 40 plus years ago, uh, you would recognize that she had an unsurmountable number of challenges in front of her. But I've never seen my mom over all these years ever say that anything is impossible. Her unwavering faith in saying, you want to become an engineer, you can do it. You want to go to business school, you can. It's just been really, really inspiring to see her kind of exude that sort of confidence. She also instilled these values of focus and hard work in my sisters and I, really emphasizing that when you work hard and whatever you put in, the relentless focus that you bring will never be lost. It may seem like it's not recognized when you feel like you need that recognition, but it will eventually pay off. And finally, the compassion and kindness that my mom has just shown, even to strangers, when she herself barely had anything, the way she would always embrace anyone that she came in contact with so much compassion has really been very, very influential for me. So as I think back to starting on this personal journey, moving to the US when I was in high school, going to high school, one of the things that Cheryl mentioned is that I graduated from San Jose State in 96. What she didn't talk about is it took me 6+ years to graduate. A lot of times, many of you may be feeling this. I know I felt this when I was in college, which was there has to be a very direct trajectory. Like you probably got all A's in school, you went to a top tier college, you got a job at a big corporation, you just climbed the ladder, life is good. But in reality, we all know that that's seldom how things work. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about my own career journey. And when I graduated from San Jose State, as Cheryl mentioned, I went to go work at HP after several months. When I graduated, I was actually 7 months pregnant with my son when I walked at graduation. So I stayed home for a few months, and then after my son was about a few months old, I decided to go work as a software engineer. I loved getting a job. It was a real job that paid real money. I could start to pay off all those student loans and start to really build my life with my husband and my new child. I was very excited, and when I started out, I was a BIOS engineer writing firmware. And it was really exciting for the first few months. But about 9-10 months into the job, I was starting to feel a little weary of like, oh gosh, it's the weekend, Sunday, the Sunday blues, if you ever heard of them. It's like, tomorrow's going to be Monday. And that's when I decided that I really needed to think about what gives me true joy and really think about this. And so I went from being a software engineer to, I transitioned into a role called a system engineer at HP, and then later on as a system manager. And what those roles really afforded me to do is focus on solving really big technical problems and challenges and build fantastic products, but not about just sitting at a desk and writing code, although people are fantastic at that. And I really admire. If that's your jam, like, go for it. It wasn't mine. And being able to figure that out and then really move into these roles in program management. And then I moved into a chief of staff role and operations. The reason I have this slide here, I'm sure everybody's heard of the tip of the iceberg effect, right? Usually when you meet somebody at a party or if you are at a networking event and people ask you what you do, we tend to focus on all those things that are above the water. We talk about, oh, I progressed from an engineer to a program manager to operations, this, that, the other. What we really don't talk about, and I think it's super important, it was very foundational in my own career, was that as I was really pursuing these things in my career, it was really important for me to be able to also focus on the other aspects of my life. Because as years have gone by, and I'm sure many of you, even as students, can probably attest to the fact that how you were brought up and the values that you grew up with and what experiences you had really impact your whole self. And so as I got married and had kids and have an aging parent, so my mom is now 88 years old and she lives with me, and really grateful for that. But like, there's other sets of challenges, and how you navigate your career journey to be able to do all the things above the water, but really the foundational pieces that are under the water that you don't always talk about, but are so critically important and really build out who you become as a person and as a leader and as a colleague. So, the reason I have all these here is because, especially as I was personally starting out my career, it was more comfortable naturally to talk about projects and to talk about new languages or whatever. But what I really found out is when I went under the surface and really got to know my colleagues and really understand what makes them who they are, I found that it really, really made a difference in my relationship and how we work together. Whether they were focusing on their own fitness and going for a, training for a triathlon, which is definitely not me, but, or they were focused on giving back, those elements of those relationships really helped me. So when I talk about my career journey, it's easy to kind of focus on the top, but all of those things underneath the water are also really important, right? The other thing I want to talk about is, especially as we in engineering think about our careers, a different perspective for me was really around, where do I focus and grow and learn? As Cheryl mentioned, I worked at Cisco for 18 and a half years. And when I started at Cisco, I was working in the core networking business. And it gave me a really strong foundation. Cisco is a networking company. So being able to start my career there, working in a core technology and understand the products and the nuances of how the market works, was super important, understanding and learning about the technology. But a lot of times when we talk about career progression, for me personally, it wasn't just about, and there are people who will become masters and they'll go really deep and have developed vertical expertise. For me, what I decided to really focus on and what brought me alive was being able to have more of a horizontal approach in really learning about all the different technologies. And I remember when I first joined Cisco, so I was at HP and then I went and worked at a startup for a year because in 2000, everybody was working for a startup. That was the hot thing to do in the Valley. And I'm like, why not me? So I did try working for a startup that was making set-top boxes, much like what you have with your TiVo boxes, or now the companies like they're already built in with Dish and others. But we were at that time pioneers. Um, when I went and interviewed at Cisco, the conversation was, what skills do you bring that you can really put to work directly into the products we're trying to ship with networking? And I just want to remind you all that so many of the skills that I even use today are things that I learned and developed when I was at San Jose State. So the ability to really be relentless and stay up late to finish those assignments, you know that once you are aware of what challenge is in front of you, you'll be able to go and tackle that. The times that you had to go and work with a partner or in a team where you had to bear the brunt of the work because this person, for whatever reason, couldn't put in equal amount of time, and you were just like, this is not fair, or why does this have to happen? And you relented and you kind of put it in. That happens in real life as well. So really, as you think about what you want to do in your career, I urge you to think about, do you want to develop those deep vertical expertise, or do you want to go horizontal? And I personally got a lot out of this. And being able to learn about new technologies is a skill in and of itself, because the world is changing so fast. When I moved from Cisco after 18 and a half years at a company, and I was talking to VMware and trying to make a decision of whether this was the right time, do I want to do this? I loved working at Cisco. Cisco is a fantastic company and I've grown so much. But as I was thinking about what I want to do next in my career, one of the things that I thought about is I really wanted to work at a software company. I wanted to know what it was like to work at an enterprise software company. What kind of challenges do we have? Where is the market headed? How do you even sell these products? How do you package them? How do you interact with the other industries and the new trends that are coming up? I mean, those are all things I wanted to learn. And I won't lie to you and say that I was just like so confident. I remember the night before I was starting my job on a Monday. Last year was the week of Thanksgiving. And Sunday night, my husband was like, hey, well, how are you feeling about your new job? And I'm like, it's great. I'm excited. And he said, what are you going to wear? And I said, what am I going to wear? I don't know. I'll just wear something. He's like, no. What do you mean? You always like lay out your clothes. You know what you want to wear. I was like, okay, fine. And my daughter was home from college for Thanksgiving. She's like, Mom, let me help you. And so we picked out some clothes and I wore a nice power suit because I'm like, I need to feel that power. And, next day morning, I'm in the office and my first couple of hours, I'm going to orientation. And then I was picked up and I went and met with my boss for about 20 minutes. We sat in his office and ate lunch. And then he's like, I have to go because it was the week we were announcing our earnings. And he had to really go and be engaged in lots of conversations. I'm like, sure, no problem. And he left. And then I went to my office and I just kind of sat and tried to get everything in order and walked around and met maybe a couple people. Came home that evening and my husband's like, so how was your first day? I'm like, it was good. He's like, how many people did you meet? I'm like, I don't know, 3. And he's like, what's wrong with you? That is so not you. The reason I'm telling you this story is because if you met me in any other circumstances, you would know that I'm a super, outgoing, extroverted, really can strike up a conversation with anyone kind of person. But there are times for all of us where things feel uncomfortable and you're actually out of your comfort zone. And that was the single most reason why I decided that it was time for me to really go after this change. So, really, I've been here for 11 months, and it's been fantastic. I know hundreds of people around the company across, driving some amazing things, and it's been a fun ride, and I'm really looking forward to it. But there will be many firsts over your career. And it's true that there are times when you just have to plow through and fake some of it. But when you fake it, I always am a little wary of that little phrase, fake it till you make it, because it could be misinterpreted. And the way I think about it is, you need to just remember that everybody has gone through what you're going through. So that's sort of a different perspective. I'm going to tell you guys a story. And before I do that, Cheryl, do you want to pause? And are there any questions that I should answer, or do you think I should keep going?
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat at this point. So
Okay.
yeah, and I'll just remind all of our students and any other guests to please go ahead and put stuff in the chat, and we will have definitely time at the end.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to tell you guys a story. I have two kids. I have a 24-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. And this is about when my daughter was in second grade, so it's a little dated. It was 15 years ago, but it's been a formative part of my career. So my daughter was in second grade, and I was at Cisco, and my daughter once came to me. I think it was just around Thanksgiving, and said, "Hey, Mom, I need you to come to my school on December 14th." And I'm like, "What's happening on December 14th?" And she said, "Mom, we have a international potluck at my school just before the holidays, and we're doing we're serving Peruvian food." And I said, "Let me look at my schedule." So I got my computer and I'm looking at it. I'm like, "Oh, Mira, I'm sorry. I have a really important meeting that afternoon, so I don't think I can be there." She looked at me, and I could tell that she was upset, but she went away. 10 minutes later, she came back and she's like, "Mom, can you tell me what's your boss's name?" And I'm like, "Why are you asking me this, Mira?" And she's like, "Please just tell me." And I'm like, "Kathy." And she's like, "Well, what's her last name?" And I said, "Hill." She said, "Okay." She went back to her room. 10 minutes later, she comes back and hands me a piece of paper. And she said, "Mom, tomorrow when you go to work, can you give this note to Kathy?" And I said, "What? What is it?" And she said, "Well, I wrote her a little note. Like, I want you to give it to your boss." And I said, "Mira, you can't do that." And she's like, "Yeah, you can. Like, you write notes to my teacher all the time. So I want to write a note to your boss." And I really didn't know how to respond to that or what to say. So I was like, okay. And I took the note. I kind of split it in my notebook, and I went to work. And the next day, we're in a meeting, and this is a meeting with Kathy, was a senior vice president at the company, and we had several other VPs in the meeting. And I'm standing up to start off a meeting and kick us off. I was a program manager at the time. And just as I'm getting up, I'm thinking, gosh, I have that note from my daughter. Do I just tell her that I gave it to Kathy and she won't know any difference? Or do I do what's the right thing to do, which is she wrote the note, I need to give it to Kathy. And so I kind of, slid the note quietly to Kathy. And I'm like, when you get a chance, just take a look. She opens the note, she reads it. I'm at the front of the room about to start the meeting, and she goes, "Sonar, stop, 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 stop." And I'm like, "Okay." And she reads the note out loud to everybody in the room. And the note goes something like this. It says, "Dear Miss Hill, I wanted to ask your permission to see if my mom can miss a part of your important meeting on December 14th to attend an international potluck at my school. It's really, really important to me that she comes, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Sincerely, Mira Thekdi. P.S. P.S. We're serving Peruvian food, so if we have any leftovers, I will be happy to send some for your team in GSB." The room cracks up and everybody's laughing, and the story could end there. It could really just, it's a fantastic story. I'm sure you all agree with me, but it didn't. And what ended up happening next is Kathy actually wrote a letter back to my daughter just underneath her note and said, "Dear Mira, of course your mom can miss my meeting. Her family is the most important to her. And we would, just so you know, your mom is excellent at what she does, and we love her. Sincerely, Kathy. P.S. We would love Peruvian food. Please send some over." And I've told the story many times, and even now when I tell the story, it gives me jitters because so many things happened during that experience. I've never worked harder on anything than I did for the work that I needed to get done for missing that meeting that day. But really, what I learned is you have to be really anchored on doing the right thing. Once you do the right thing, the rest of it will follow. You have to, that's something that I truly believe in. And then being compassionate. What Kathy did that day has not only impacted me, but it has impacted my daughter. It has impacted, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of women who I've shared the story with, who've all told me that I can't forget this. And my relationship with Kathy, she has been a fantastic mentor for me over the last 17 years. And there have been times where I might miss out on writing to her or reaching out and saying, "Kathy, can we meet?" When that happens, she reaches out to me and just is such a fantastic role model and ideal in my life. She serves on many boards and does a lot of work for the industry and for women. But this is the kind of examples that really drive me to really think about what's important in how we do our work. You know, a lot of times when I talk about my career and what I've done, the question comes up around, hey, what exactly is your role? Like, what does, and a lot of times as I was building out my career, I have repeatedly been in roles that weren't 100% defined as being very specific. But I would always get advice from people around, hey, you know, we need to think outside the box, or you need to define what your sandbox is. All of these box analogies. And what I've just discovered is just abandon the damn box. Nobody needs a box. And what happens in your career and your story is something that you own. It's unique to you. And so super important to really think about what are the things that make you who you are. What do you bring to the table? What can you offer? What can you learn? And really build around that. Early in my career, at Cisco, my first year, my first boss there, we used to do these things called performance reviews. You may not even have heard of them, and you may never have to, because lots of companies don't do performance reviews. But one of my first bosses, she gave me a performance review, and she wrote something that was really profound. She said, "Sonar, don't let ambiguity drive you nuts. Make it work for you." And I really, really use that as I've thought about, do I even need a box? The last thing that's super important, and this is really important, especially also as we are in these times of COVID, lots of challenges around people working from home, people having to tend to their families, both young children, parents, their own health challenges, trying to balance everything out. One thing that's super important though is being very crystal clear for me is hard work is important, but it's results that matter. So really don't mistake hard work with results. Be very clear on what's the top priority. What are the top 2, 3, 4 things you need to do, and do them really well. And not get fixated on whether this person is putting in 3 hours or 30 hours, or are they working the middle of the night because the young kids need their parents to be there as they're doing their school and classes from home. It really is not that important. And let's not equate number of hours or hard work with results. Focusing on really being crystal clear on what we need to do is really important. And so these work principles have really guided my own career over the years. And I think if you can take anything out of this, that would be great. Um, I don't know if you guys have heard about the concept of Ikigai. It's Japanese, and what it's about, if you haven't, you might want to look it up at some point. But it really talks about beautiful things that happen in life. If you can think about what you love, what you're really good at, what the world needs, and what you can actually get paid for. If you can combine those things beautifully in some way, that's called Ikigai. And I've always, over my life, really thought about how do I bring all of those elements into everything that I do. And it really, for me, starts with trusting my gut. When Mira wrote that letter to Kathy, whether or not I shared that with her, whether or not I gave it back to Mira with the response that she gave me, all those things, like knowing deep inside, and especially as a woman, I feel like I've had a very strong instinct. Really learning how to build on and trust that instinct has served me really well. So that's really something I depend on. So I'm an engineer by education. So I tell people that I'm high on verify. I do need the details. I want to understand the data behind whatever situation we're talking in. Have a logical approach, but then at the end of the day, trust your gut in what needs to happen. The second one is really, really personal for me. If you can find a way to make your passion your profession, it'll never feel like you're going to work. You're just gonna have so much fun, and this is something I've really instilled in my kids. So my older, my son is older and my daughter is younger. My son is a filmmaker, and he went to film school. And when he was growing up, he went to a school, and I have been a huge proponent for STEM education. My husband is an engineer as well. And we've really, and our son, Neil, is great in, was great in math, in sciences. He's very analytical in his thought process. So we thought that, he'll probably go into engineering. In just about 8th or 9th grade, he came and said, guys, I love being behind the camera. He used one of my digital cameras to make his first film, I think in 7th grade, and just, there was no stopping him. But I've always told my kids that the reason I was able to do all those things under the iceberg is because I was so fulfilled in my job, in what I did, because I was passionate about it. So if you can find a way to make that passion your profession, it'll never feel like you're going to work. And so when my son was in high school and telling us that this is what he wanted to do, we had to support him, and we did. And we said, yeah, if this is what you're passionate about, you need to go pursue it. And we don't know what the future has in store for him and what he's going to do, but he's loving every minute of it. And I think it's super important to find that. The third one is really about dreaming. A lot of us are dreamers, and a lot of us have vision and bold ideas. And I want to just challenge us all to say, having the vision, having a dream, having goals is super important, but really, really focusing on executing on those is just as important, because this is a fantastic. I remember my son told me who wrote this. It's not me. I'm not that brilliant, but I forget who wrote it. But whoever did, I think it's so true that vision without execution is hallucination. Make sure that whatever you're dreaming about, whatever it is that you want to go pursue, you follow it up with action, because inaction is a decision in and of itself. And you really want to think about, you know, where do you want to go? Lastly, look, we all have, as you look around and we look especially in the world today and everything that's happening, everything around social injustice, everything with the political environment and where things are, everything with pandemic also creating inequities. And I just read this alarming report that came out a couple of weeks ago from Lean In and McKinsey. They do an annual study on the state of women in the workplace, and they've talked about the fact that women are at an alarming pace leaving the workplace as a result of the pandemic. And I truly believe that change has to happen with each one of us. It doesn't matter what size of change we can influence, but we really need to embody this that I've learned from Gandhi, which is, if you want to see something change in the world, it has to start with us. So really, really important. And I try to really put this in practice, that if I want somebody to do something, then it needs to start with me. This is the last thing I want to talk about, because a lot of times I talk to students and they tell me, how do you know what you're passionate about? Look, if you're like Neil and you just know that you want to be in film, like I remember his NYU, where he went to school, his essay, they said, why do you want to pursue the field that you're in? And he wrote some really good stuff, but the last sentence of his essay was, I'm 17 years old and I don't know much in life, but I know that I want to work on films until the day I die. I thought that exuded that passion. So he's super fortunate to have found that. That didn't happen for me. I decided that I wanted to become an engineer when I was like 7 or 8 years old, because I didn't remember my dad, who was an engineer. He passed away, like I said, when I was 3 years old. I don't even remember what he looked like. But I used to say as a child that I'm going to follow and carry forward my father's legacy and become an engineer. And that was a dream, and I was just like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And I went to engineering school and got my degree. But then I figured out that if I can't be passionate, then that's something that has to change. And the way I went about it is really keeping an open mind and trying new things until you figure out what it is that you love about your job. I tell people, sometimes people are like, I don't know, like even in my day-to-day job. What I've kind of said here is, if you don't know what you're passionate about, or if you can't make your passion your profession, because sometimes your passion may truly be singing, but then you know that that's not a profession that you want to be in for whatever personal reasons, find the passion in your profession. Find the elements in your job that really make you forget the world around you. Really pay attention to what it is that gives you that, and don't settle. So the last thing, I just wanted to say, I wish again that I was on campus. Some beautiful changes that have been made to the San Jose State campus, which I just loved when I went to the WE conference last year. A lot of times we hear people say TGIF. I never hear anybody say TGIM. So I'm really hoping that for everyone that's here today, not only will you have in the future this anticipation of great weekends and excitement for all those things you love outside of work, but I hope that you also have some sweet anticipation for Mondays in your life and can really, really focus on what's happening today and being grateful for that. So with that, Cheryl, I'm going to come back to you. I think I did my 40 minutes, and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, yeah, this was wonderful. So we do have some questions that are coming through the chat. It looks like they got sent directly to me, but I'll go ahead and read them out. So a good starter question, what are some concrete ways that we can grow our careers horizontally? So what type of a position, what type of positions in a company can we strive for compared to growing vertically in our profession? And I would also add, can you speak to the importance of or lack of importance, your thoughts on having a definite subject matter expertise and some vertical dimension to it?
Yeah. So, great question, because I wish I could say that I knew that from when I started my career. I almost it accidentally happened over the years. I would say, really being able to go and pursue careers like what I did in program management, where you get to meet people from many different parts of the product development lifecycle. So you'll be working with product managers, you'll be working with software developers, you'll be working with back office and IT folks who may be enabling the products. You'll be working with marketing to really get the product out the door. So really getting an end-to-end picture is important. So that's one example of a role. I think the other piece is, even as a product manager, you do get exposure to understanding what customers want, work with engineering, and really work on defining the product. So I think those are some examples. And the question around, Cheryl, that you asked on both vertical versus horizontal, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think being curious, really building your network. So when I came to VMware, for example, my first month or two, I literally spent time talking to hundreds of people just to understand it. And this is something I've really experienced, which is most people genuinely want to help you. When you reach out to them and say, hey, can I have 30 minutes of your time? Can you explain how this product works? Or can you explain your role? Or can you help me understand why you made this decision? Most people are genuinely really open. And what it takes is that first step, that your initiation to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I would love your help. And really using that skill set to build out enough vertical knowledge to be able to then go into connecting the dots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does. So another transition question. How did you, and maybe I'll put why did you, transition from engineering and program manager to operations?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then what are some skills that the students asking that we should focus on that can carry from engineering to operations?
Great questions. When I first started, the engineering foundation that I had was really helpful, because I knew exactly these three things that I can bring that I was confident could be valuable. So I started with that as a basis. Program management was a natural extension, because I moved into program managing a product that I was familiar with. So there were elements of the product I understood, and that was a natural transition. Going from program management to operations, its program management still has a lot of elements of product delivery. And the key fundamental difference when you go into operations is now you're focusing more on the business. So one thing that was, I'll be honest, that was a little difficult for me is giving up on being directly connected to products. There is a thrill that comes out of being able to say, I was a part of making this product happen. Like, here is a multi-billion or $100 million product that's now shipping, and I had a role to play in it. When you go into operations, you move from being a very front end product facing role to being in the background. And but it gives you a really good understanding of how a business is run. And a big element of any product delivery operation is around understanding how do we make decisions around where resources are allocated? How do you make budget decisions? How do you make decisions around your site strategy and where do you want to be operating? Those things were really, really interesting to me. And I will say there were people who were cautiously discouraging me from moving away from product into operations, because a lot of times there is a discomfort and this perhaps unspoken sort of thought process that the farther away you get from technology directly in terms of building it, that somehow it makes you less sort of attractive for leadership positions. And I just haven't, that hasn't been the case with me, because once you have that technical foundation, nobody can take that away from you. So even when you're in your classes at San Jose State and with your professors, I encourage you guys to make sure that a lot of the discussions that are happening in class tie back to how things work in the industry. I think it's super important to have your basics, understand product and technology and really the engineering aspects of it, but then really how these products work. So I think that those are the things that I would say. And on the questions around what skills can students build that help to transition into operations, I think it really does come down to, I thought about, do I want to go and get an MBA? Because once I pivoted to operations, but ultimately I figured out that what I needed were some really specific areas that I wanted to go and develop. Finance is definitely one of them. So being able to understand how a P&L works, what are the basic elements of a P&L? I think a big part of operations has this cross-functional element. So being able to really communicate with a broad set of people who may be playing different roles in the company or the organization, and how do you go and have conversations with people and understand what they're doing, but then be able to connect the work you're doing to add value to them, I think is something you can start to build in college. And the more you hone in that skill, I think it's super helpful.
Great, thank you. So another question, this is my question. You had a phrase, ambiguity, make it work for you. And I was wondering if you had an example of that you wanted to share.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I decided to take this job at VMware, um, it just so happened that I work for two leaders. I work for two of our COOs, and one of them was a manager of mine 15 years ago at Cisco. So he had reached out and he said, Sonar, we have this great role for you. Would love to just talk to you, because he's also been a mentor and we've talked about how I wanted to transition into software. So I said, okay. And he says, let me send you the job requisition. And he sent the job requisition, and I will just say that I looked at it and I thought, you know what? I did this. What you're asking me to do is something that I did many years ago. I don't know what you're really looking for. And he said, look, we're looking for someone who can really come and connect our whole business, who can really come and help us build how we do drive aggressive growth across the company, and some very high level things that he put in there, including a couple of things which really interested me, like drive our SaaS transformation. Like, that's such a loaded thing. What I ended up doing is, that is a perfect example where there was so much ambiguity in the definition of the role. I could have just really let that dissuade me and said, this is, I don't have clarity on what they're looking for. But instead I said, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to go in, I'm going to see where can I add the most value and really start to apply that and not let this ambiguity around what really is your role, what are you going to do, just not have a box and just go for it. So that's a recent example of the ambiguity because, and I think I know where that comment came from too, Cheryl, because she was just like, I definitely am the kind of person, like I said, I'm an engineer, I'm high verify. So everything I feel like I need data behind it. And what I've learned as I've progressed in my career is that very few things in life are an exact science. And so being able to really lean on your experiences, lean on your network when you don't have all the answers, and not letting that stop, that ambiguity of do I have the right answer stop you, but actually embracing it is important.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. So for all of the people that might be doing senior project, which may be entirely underspecified, or doing research where you're not going to have the answers because it's never been done before, that's why you're doing it. Hopefully, this is really encouraging. Um, so, here's another question. So after working at Cisco, how did you know when it was the right time for you to transition? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you got pulled by the openness or
Yes.
the
Yes.
ambiguity of the role, but
Look, you don't really, I have been one of those people that I'm going to make the best out of what's come to me. But I'll tell you the thought process that I went through. I hope that helps. So, over my time at Cisco, I had worked in 8 or 9 different businesses across the company. I felt like I had a really good understanding of where Cisco was. Like I said, I love the company. I wasn't looking to leave. But I also felt like there were a couple of areas in my career that I really wanted to go and pursue, including working at an enterprise software company. One mantra that I've kind of applied when I'm looking to transition is I call it the 3 Ps. I think about the product. If you make a triangle and the three corners, one is product, one is people, and one is sort of process or just like technical skills that you have. When I'm looking to transition, if I can find somewhere where I have two of those really big, so like I'm an expert in networking and I know the hiring manager and it's at a different company, I can probably pursue that because I'm bringing some things that I'm an expert at and I have a champion. Or sometimes it could be that I'm staying in the same company, working on a completely different product, but also know the person. So when you kind of do that sort of analogy around the triangle, what I looked at is I thought of all the software companies that are there, VMware's portfolio has a lot of the elements of what Cisco is doing. They do software defined networking, software defined storage, software defined compute, like all of the core technologies that I understood. And then I had leaders there, including my boss, who I had familiarity with. I knew the culture in the company. And I think that's really what kind of helped me move forward with that decision. Oh, you're muted, Cheryl.
all right, my turn for the mute. What are some of your goals today, and then also, what does the next 5 years look like for you?
Yeah, look, I wish I could be one of those people who says I had my life planned out, when I was in high school and I knew what I was going to do 5 years after graduation and 10, 15, 20. Uh, that would be an utter lie because I don't plan my life that way. So I don't know exactly what the next 5 years will bring and where I will be. What I can tell you is I expect and hope to be in the industry. I hope to be continuing to take the experiences that I'm gaining at VMware, either within the company or hopefully within the company, because I love VMware, and really thinking about now that I understand how the products work, the company works, how can I continue to have a larger impact? The other piece that's really something that I'm passionate about is around giving back. I'm at a point in my career where I really also feel like it's disheartening to me that when I graduated from San Jose State, we had like 5 or 6 women in our classes out of 25, 30. I don't think that statistic, unfortunately, has changed much. And so, what we could do about getting more representation, diverse representation, and with recent events, it's not just about gender, it's truly about diverse representation. And I think it starts with education. So I would love to do something in education, really potentially not even just university, but even lower grade levels like elementary school and middle school. So that's really where I'm hoping to focus.
Great. Yeah. So I think there'll be a bunch of really grateful people when you do that. Maybe this will be our last question because we're coming up on time. Could you talk about the impact of remote work in your role? So we're all doing it. What does it mean to you?
Yes. I will admit that I wasn't a big fan of remote work when the pandemic hit and we first started doing this. I was telling Cheryl and Lisa and a couple other ladies before that, like, I never really stepped into this room in my house, even though we had it. Like, I never sat here because I was in the office all the time. But I've learned a few things. I've really come to appreciate those that have been doing remote work and potentially not been as noticed or have felt slighted because of the way we run meetings or we run conversations or not be inclusive. So I think I have heightened awareness of how to be more inclusive with people. The biggest thing I think this does, though, is also really creates an equal playing field. Like, we're in meetings, and now I notice that with this chat feature, people who are not even comfortable with talking can still put their questions in the chat window on Zoom calls, and they can be heard. So being really, really particular about giving everyone an opportunity. And then finally, I would say one of the responsibilities that I have in this role is really around driving a culture of innovation and inclusion across our company and collaboration. And with the remote work, equalizing or downplaying the importance of where people are based and really creating equal opportunities, irrespective of where somebody is, will be a big equalizer. I truly believe that we could do that as long as we also align that with some help for people to be able to do more part-time work or be able to really balance the time they need to spend with their families, etc. So I think those are the things that I've really learned.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. I think there's a lot of really good advice for our students who are maybe, engineers always have informal study groups, and also we definitely have a lot of project work, and it's important to try to make our interactions also inclusive when we're all working from home. All right, so I think with that, let's thank Sonar. So I'm going to applaud. This is awkward, but we really appreciate it, and we want to thank all of our